Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality. Well, welcome to another riveting episode of Transitions Radio's Real Talk with the Cummings. My name's Angelo.
And I'm Lynna Ariel, and thank you guys for joining us here on this Thursday afternoon.
Many of you are going stir crazy at home. We actually went out, played a little hoop, walked around a little bit, got some fresh air, checked out the local parks. I highly suggest that people do that instead of just being all cooped up at home, while you still have a chance to go out to the parks.
I was amazed at how few kids are out. You know, school's out all around, but all the playgrounds, nobody's playing on them.
Hello, Elliot. Hope you're doing well. You still haven't arrived in England, right? I think
you made it home.
You're home already.
Oh, good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was reading something that you were still on the way or something like that, but you finally made it home. That's good to hear. And hopefully you have supplies and stuff to hold you for whatever length of time. There's a lot of unknowing.
There's a lot of things that are happening every moment, every second. It seems like things are changing. I was just kind of shocked. We were at the park, like we were talking about earlier just now. And security, I guess, came up to us and asked us if we were looking for someone.
And I'm like,
no, we're just visiting a park. Is this what's in store for the future? I mean, you have to report where you're going to be.
And our gym closed down yesterday when we drove there, and we had a nice little sign that said
it's closed.
So we have to find ways of working out with things. And talking about working out, we just got sent a sample from PaceEarth is the name of the company, and it's actually, let me pull out the little box here, and the link is down below where you guys can purchase some of their stuff. Please, let me see here. Yeah, you can hold it.
This is their barbell pad that they have, and it's like really nice.
Yeah, it's actually super duper nice. It's got Velcros, and we're supposed to make a video, but our gym is closed. So we actually picked, and let me show you. They have all their stuff, a whole bunch of different things. But this is awesome because you can put this on the Smith machine, which is where we usually do our actual squats, or you can use a barbell. But it's got the Velcro, and I've got the patience of a 2-year-old when it comes to
You just pulled it all apart.
I just pulled it all apart here.
It's literally these Velcro enclosures that a lot of times when people work out in our gym, I don't know why, but they're putting these on.
They put them on this area where it opens it up, and then it's like it doesn't stay.
It ruins it.
But with this, they've got the little Velcro thing.
You've got these Velcro things, right? And then those technically latch on after you put it on the pipe, right?
You bring it behind, and it protects your neck, which is when you're trying to lift with squats. It's really hard when you have, like I usually squat 210, 250, and it really makes a difference when you have a nice pad. So check them out, and the link is down below.
Looking forward to using it when we are able to get our gym membership back and running, but as far as it goes now, I don't know how things are going to return to normal.
So let me see here if I could share some of their. They have really cool stuff. They have wood push-ups stands, set of 2. They also have the resistance band set for those of you that need to work out and want to train at home. What else do they have for home? Gosh, they've got some inflatable stability wobble cushion with pump. And if you've got a tree and you want to swing, they've got a swing set, and it holds up to 660 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, that's nice. Pretty nice. And PaceEarth also has an exercise ball, yoga balance fitness ball, and chair, 65 centimeters, stability birthing workout ball. Wow, birthing. And you've got your lifting wrist bands. I mean, they've got all sorts of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. The resistance bands are nice. They look nice.
They do. So, I mean, the link below, you guys could go ahead and...
what's that? Professional wooden slant board calf ankle stretcher with stretch resistance table.
That's really good. You could actually get some stretching of your calves and ankle. You could probably do some calf raises there. And it's got the little band right there, which is really cool. And grip strength, which is really good if you're a guitar player or piano player. And here's the barbell pad that we got. I mean, they've got all sorts of different things. So check them out. The link is below. PaceEarth collections, definitely.
It's really kind of a bummer that the gyms are closed because we were going to do a demo video.
We will when they opened up. Yeah, but at least, go ahead and... check them out so that, help them out. And they did, and then they've got a program, some sort of like
incentive
program where people sign up and you register and you get exclusive discounts, loyalty rewards, and other special benefits on the link that I actually sent you. And they don't not only just sell workout stuff, they have other stuff, like products that they just released. So when you go in there, you guys will have a little video and all that great stuff. So
that's great. I'm gonna look at their website myself. I haven't really seen it all.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Yeah, they contacted me the other day because we've made a couple of fitness videos. We're working on the machine, so they wanted us to try their product. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think Laura was her name, who sent it to me. But we will definitely be making a video soon. And so let's talk a little bit about what's going on here, guys.
Elliot says, it was 2 flights and a 3-hour drive, but I'm finally here. I was traveling since yesterday morning, so I've been asleep all day since I got back.
Jet lag. Something, that's Prophecy End of Days joining us. We checked out that link. I think it was you that sent it to us on Facebook, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, the food shortage that's actually taking place. And was that shortage actually there before this whole coronavirus kicked in? There's food for thought there.
Some people were saying that they noticed the food supply at different grocery stores kind of dwindling down a bit, and it was kind of like, why are these food items not as in abundance like they were before?
Yeah, and because people really don't pay attention to things. Hello, Zupat. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, hi, Zupat.
They don't pay attention to little signs and stuff because everybody's involved in their everyday life, and you don't really pay attention. But sometimes you've got to be very aware, what's happening around you. So let's see here. The article we found from the Los Angeles Times says, will coronavirus affects food supplies? First problem, a possible shortage of workers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't our president all of a sudden pass some sort of bill that does not allow the migrant workers to come in, and he's stopping it? That's what we heard from.
Yeah, we heard something like that. They're not issuing like these cards for people to be able to come across the border and do their seasonal work. And agriculture depends on the Mexican farm laborer to come in and to help them. When I was living in Manson, Washington, it was kind of like the heart of apple growing country. And you knew that, there needed to be a large workforce of people. And those people are really good at doing that, and they work really, really hard. And if they don't get the chance to come across the border to do their jobs, who's going to do it?
So
we don't have them.
Besides the workers not being there, the production of fruits and vegetables and food supplies have been decreased. There's very different reasons behind this. It could be, the poor weather conditions. There's been a lot of freezes and excessive amount of rains and stuff like that actually affects the production of Mother Nature's way of making her fruits and vegetables.
I think it's interesting that the president would use the word that we are at war, because basically we are at war, but who's the enemy?
Yeah.
That's the big question, because the enemy is being touted as a virus right now, the unseen enemy, as it's been called. But I don't know who the enemy is.
Yeah.
Is it within? I don't know.
There's a lot of things being pushed too quickly ever since this coronavirus scare has been going on. And it's really mind-blowing. We watched Contagion yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Movie from back in 2011.
Yeah.
Recently there was an earthquake in Utah just yesterday, right? A 5.7. 8 months ago, if you look it up on YouTube, they were prepping the people of the city of Salt Lake who never really see earthquakes, but they said, oh, this fault line could become active, and if it did, this is what could happen. And it's like 8 months later, the same thing that they predicted happened.
Yeah. And Prophecy End of Day says she wants to watch it as well as 2012, the movie. Yeah, I'm telling you. I think we're also going to watch one called Terminal by Tom Hanks. There's some hidden messages in that one as well. One of the things that we notice with Hollywood, they kind of have to tell you what's going to happen before it happens. It's like something to do with their rituals or something to that nature. But interesting times we're living in right now, that's to say the least. So let's see here. This article is written by Jeffrey Mohan. He's a staff writer. And California's nearly $50 billion agricultural industry is bracing for a potential labor shortfall that could hinder efforts to maintain the nation's fresh produce supply amid the widening coronavirus outbreak. And I wanted to add, how the store hours are being changed and shortened because they're cutting a lot of the employees, but those shelves are not being
we
replaced.
Went to our local grocery store and to everyone's favorite Walmart. Anyway, I say that facetiously, but the shelves are not being replenished. And I know that we're getting, this false sense of security from the president saying, oh no, America's supply chain is in perfect shape. And then you see pictures of like the ports being empty, and there's no trucks coming in to pick any goods up, and the warehouses apparently Amazon is laying a bunch of people, well, cutting routes or something, and they don't have as many supplies. They're kind of just draining their warehouses of all the goods that they've had. I don't know. Something else is running out there.
Subhead that says, my feeling is something bigger is afoot. Methinks so as well. I think that obviously they can't tell us everything because of the reactionary way that humans react to things. And just watching that movie Contagion yesterday and seeing how people were reacting, and they were acting like, animals behave better than the way they were behaving, loitering and just instead of working together, they work against one another and they become very violent, that's what scares me. And Prophecy End of Days has something very interesting, which I was thinking about that. Actually, you must have read my mind. She said,
watch The Simpsons. They always have predictive programming.
Yes.
Are they still on?
I haven't watched, but they always have something that, when the towers were hit, they had that in a little cartoon-like thing.
The president also, when he was being nobody imagine that guy would be the president.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the
It was
guy
like,
who was the guy that was the
millionaire, no,
the Apprentice,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it was the reality show star, and he turns into our president.
Fiction is
It's
stranger
crazy.
than life, I tell you. Totally.
So anyway, back to the article. The immediate concern centers on a backlog in the recruitment of foreign guest workers because of the virus-related shutdown of consul offices processing agricultural H-2A visas in Mexico.
The expected bottleneck is recruitment of temporary agricultural workers arises weeks before the harvest time for crops such as strawberries and lettuce that heavily depend on the foreign crews along the state Central Coast and in Salina Valleys, according to growers and labor contractors.
The fears highlight a gap in the Trump administration's market-centered approach to keeping vital industries running, which includes numerous measures aimed at supporting aid, credit, and the major commodity crops in the nation's heartland. There has been little done to address the labor-intensive fresh food crops that form the backbone of California's agriculture.
Amid uproar from the agriculture industry this week, the U.S. Department of Agriculture presses the State Department to continue processing H-2A visas, even at its closed consulates across the border region. So far, state has responded by promising to waive in-person interview requirements for H-2A applicants who obtained visas last year. That's about half the H-2A workers, according to the industry trade groups.
The U.S. Consulate General in Monterrey announced that they will prioritize the processing of returning H-2 workers who are eligible for an interview waiver, a USDA spokesman said Tuesday. Otherwise, the administration will continue to examine what authorities are available while ensuring public safety and health.
Assurance from USDA and state were not enough to satisfy girl shippers and contractors in California who have been pressing for more clear answers as the scope of the pandemic comes into focus. The state has faced years of labor shortage caused by the aging of the local workforce, immigration crackdown, improvement in job prospect in Mexico, and other factors.
We just don't have enough H-2A workers coming across in normal times, said Dave Puglia, president of the Western Growers Association, a regional agricultural trade group. California recruited more than 23,000 H-2A workers in the fiscal year that ended in October, placing the state fourth behind Florida, Georgia, and Washington, respectively, according to the U.S. Labor Department.
A halt or a drastic slowdown in processing visas will have an immediate domino effect of the domestic food supply of this country, said David Saccaroni, vice president of Fresh Harvest, the country's largest private contractor of H-2A workers. No emergency declaration or short-term provision will change this fact.
Most of the laborers contracted by Fresh Harvest are veterans of other seasons, giving the company hope that most applicants will be eligible for waivers. Any shortfall or slowdown, however, would have a cascading effect across production, harvest, processing, and distribution within weeks, Scaroni said. Plants already in the ground do not know that there is a pandemic occurring. It is crucial to keep this process going as close to the prior normal to ensure a stable food supply for the coming months. And that's the thing. Without workers to like do the things that need to happen in order for the crops to get to harvest, which is a lot of intense work that they have to do. I was amazed at how much they literally do have going on. You know, making apples go to harvest is a year-long endeavor. I mean, they just don't plant a tree, watch it grow, and then pick the apples later. I mean, they have to, prune them. They have to take
a lot of work.
I mean, there's so much detail.
And even with the animal industry, with there's nobody there to tend to the chickens. There's I read somewhere tons of chickens are dying because they're not being tended to. They're starving, because there's nobody out there. The next few weeks will be crucial. Labor contracting surges dramatically as produce shifts from the winter desert region of California and Arizona and gets underway along the Central Coast. That region hosts the bulk of the state's strawberries production and much of its spring and summer leafy greens, broccoli and cauliflower, among other crops.
Guest workers make up a tiny fraction of the estimated 420,000 farm workers in the state of California, but that figure masks deep short-term dependency within crops and harvest areas, particularly the fertile coastal valleys from Ventura County's Oxnard Plain through the Santa Maria Valley in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties to the Salinas Valley in Monterey County.
And Dylan joins us. Hello, Dylan. On Tuesday night, Monterey County adopted a shelter-in-place ordinance similar to measures enacted already in the San Francisco Bay Area. Other countries with significant agricultural sectors likewise adopted the restrictive measures, including Sacramento, Yolo, Sonoma, Marin, San Benito, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, and San Mateo counties.
Christopher Valdez, president of the Grower Shipper Association of Central California, an industry group in Salinas, said he scrambled to assure that early adopters of restrictive ordinances exempt all sectors of the food supply chain from their prohibitions on crowds and personal interactions. Several of the Bay Area counties appeared to have overlooked food processing, which can include anything from chopping and mixing greens in prepared salad bags to making pizza sauce from tomatoes.
Monterey County ordinance crafted with substantial industry input, including a wide exemption for agriculture. We believe because of what's planted and what's going to be harvested that we can meet the demand and maintain the continuity of the food supply. Valdez said the question is the labor equation. The crops are going to be there, but what are we going to be able to do to get the crops out of the ground?
I think it's interesting that this is something that's taking place after there has already been a shortage of food,
yes,
of farmed,
the crops
produce
and
exactly. Things. They're not. I mean, when we lived in Silver City, we noticed that just the fruit that grows, on trees, the quality was just
not
really poor.
Yeah.
And also, when we lived in Florida, your own dad would say that the mangoes weren't the same. Or the papayas weren't the same as years before that. They were delayed in coming to
or they would come sooner,
ripe.
But they weren't ripening, and you kind of wonder what they're spraying in the sky. If that has something to do with it, if it's affecting the actual production, the actual quality of the food that it's being harvested. And it's like, are they trying to
trying to sabotage the food supply? Because there's been this recent uptick in the awareness of people being able to eat those Franken meats that we would eat when we were vegetarian and vegans.
Yeah.
And the Impossible Burger, most people didn't know what that was unless you were a vegan or Beyond Meat. We knew about it, but people weren't really interested. But now it's like we're being conditioned to accept these things, because I also had heard that corn feed, going to the animals and stuff like that was in decline. So that meant that there won't be as much beef being produced, that there won't be as much food available. Just the simple things, the staples that Americans eat, won't be there for people to be able to eat.
There's definitely something going on. And Elliot says, I'm scared for how this is all going to end. I don't think anyone can predict what will happen. It's going to be a tough time with people losing jobs, etc. People don't have a clue what's really heading our way. I mean, it's like we are living in times that just are. No one had even an idea that this was going to happen, although there's been a lot of conspiracy out there. We knew that something was kind of brewing, but to the extent and how quickly it has happened, it's almost like it was, how a roller coaster goes like this.
Yeah.
It's been doing this, and it's doing this, and it's doing this, but now we're like, yeah.
In my industry of work that I used to do, I was a contractor, so I wasn't given the ability to file for unemployment if something like this were to take place, because I was a contractor. And this was a time I just looked at some Twitter feeds from old friends and things, and they're hurting because all of a sudden, maybe a month ago, they're like, oh, we're going into the high time, into the busy moment, of the year where, basketball and baseball starting and hockey, playoffs are starting, all this. And so these people, they travel all around the country, getting to venue to venue, and they bring all those entertainment, sports games and concerts. And I mean, Hollywood is hurting right now because,
big time.
the shows are on hiatus. They're not producing anything. So there's like thousands of people, other than the food workers, there's thousands of people that literally have no ability to make a dime.
And even the food workers and restaurants are laying people off because they can't open up their actual restaurant. They're doing takeouts. But even that, you got to wonder when they start clamming down some more, if that's even going to be allowed. Because you're looking at, the spread of this virus is contact and money being exchanged, people touching things, handing things over. I mean, we don't know the extent.
And it's a conditioning thing for all of us, because I would have, thought a little bit about the sanitary conditions of going to a theater and lying my head back on a chair
or touching
something,
the hand rest.
Yeah. Now it's like we're being like all turned into germaphobes.
Yeah.
It's like we're all being told, oh, you need to make sure you wash your hands like more than ever before. And you need to make sure that, you don't get together with large groups of people, because if you do, the chances of catching the virus, and it's like, it's going to change the whole, like,
everything. I mean,
just the framework, the patchwork of how people congregate, how people shake hands when your president is telling you that the age of shaking hands is over.
Yeah. But then you got people in Florida, which I say, my gosh, you gotta, like, they're hanging out in bars and hanging out in the beach, and they're like totally ignoring what needs to be done because they think it can't affect them. But today I read somewhere that actually between the ages of 20 and 44 are a lot of the cases that are being seen right now. So if you're young, you're not immune to this at all. You got to be very mindful. And, I know that there is a reason why they've done this. I understand that it's part of bringing in that new order. But I truly believe that the virus is real because people are getting sick. People are dying. So this is not something like to take lightly. It's being used, but it is real. And prophecy end of day says is going to get really bad. And Elliot says, oops.
Oh, Marcy joins us.
Hey, Marcy.
She says her Wi-Fi is getting messed up.
Oh, no.
She's trying to watch.
Not good. Elliot says,
I'm very lucky that I'm being paid by my employer to stay at home, but I don't know how long that can last. I don't know how sustainable it is for an employer to just hand out money for work that's not getting done. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm sure you do too, but I mean, it's not sustainable, unless you're Apple and you make money hand over fist. But I mean,
and Elliot said it almost feels as apocalyptic. Yes, it does. And
we were just listening to Imagine Dragons' old song Radioactive, and it was like, welcome to the new age. And it was like a song that came out like 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. And it's like, welcome to This Is the End, the apocalypse. And it's like, whoa.
I was like, I want to put a little shameless plug here, but I do have a CD called Enslaved, and one of the songs is Game's Over, and the song is pretty telling as well. And the link's down below if you guys want to go to CD Baby, and you could get the actual, I think there's 16 tracks in the album, and that'd be great if you guys support me with that.
Elliot said, my job is in a restaurant and we're closed.
Yeah. And Dylan says, Elliot, I agree. Don't have a good feeling. Doesn't matter if the virus gets dealt with. We're still going to have to deal with lasting paranoia from the whole world. Totally. And then we don't really know the extent of this virus. We don't know what it actually, I mean, after watching that movie last night, Contagion, I was like, it really had me thinking, it really did. And let's see here, before we continue reading, prophecy end of day says,
this is the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Says prophecy, end of days,
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, there's nothing. I mean, being all fearful and bummed out and upset. I mean, I always say bad things happen for a good reason. The way we are heading is not good. The way people were being programmed to be consumer, self-centered, all about looks, all about themselves, that wasn't heading in the right direction. Something has to happen. We didn't get here where we are today by being self-centered, selfish. This whole generation and in the way that people live now is not conducive for the overall health of the planet and of its people. So definitely things have to change. So the article continues to read, Carol Chandler, chief executive of SGS, produced in Los Angeles, says she was pleasantly astonished when her workers of about 90 pledged to stay on the job. I gave them the option of staying at home. They were like, we're going to work. We're going to feed the country.
A lot of places like food service and purveyors, they're like a ghost town. Supply has remained steady, even as demand spiked, especially for winter type and high starch produce, potatoes, onions, squash, and the like, Chandler said.
The California Leafy Green Marketing Agreement, a quasi-governmental body that regulates the green industry, echoed that message and highlighted its hygiene regime. Its rules include mandatory hand washing and instruction for workers, clean bathroom facility, stocked with water, soap, toilet paper, and towels, prohibition against eating, chewing tobacco, or spitting in the fields, and regular sanitation of equipment. But on a good day, we have seen spread of Ebola and all sorts of, what's that other one? Salmonella and all sorts of different things. So you gotta, how safe is it? How safe? We don't know the extent of this virus and how it could be spread. I mean, they say that particles, and touching things. The way I was reading, it's a very smart virus too. It goes in there, it like
reprograms genes.
Yeah. I mean, these are super bugs that we're seeing, and it's kind of alarming.
Those rules were already in place to prevent, like we were talking about, foodborne illnesses, outbreaks that have struck the industry in the last 3 years, but are equally effective against the spread of contagious diseases among workers. I remember wasn't too long ago that they had pulled all the lettuce out of the produce section.
Long ago.
Remember that?
Yeah.
The United Farm Workers Union said hygiene practices and worker protection are hardly uniform across California crops and fields.
So now that we missed that part here, there's no evidence that contact with produce is contributing to the spread of coronavirus. Federal health and safety agencies have said historically farm workers are so used to not having health care, they just put up with being sick, said Armando Elanes, Secretary Treasurer of the United Farm Workers. They're going to go to work, and on the way to work, they'll be in a car with 4, 5, or 6 workers. So social distancing, forget that.
Workers seeking information from employers are not getting it, while they are bombarded with rumors on social media, Elena said. They also report being asked for doctor's notes or facing ridicule for asking for any of the 24 hours of paid sick leave mandated by law, Elena said.
Coronavirus cases have been confirmed in agriculture countries across the state, such as San Diego, Sacramento, Riverside, Imperial, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Fresno, Marin, Monterey, San Joaquin, San Luis Obispo, Solano, Sonoma, San Benito, Stanislaus, Tulare, and Yolo.
There is no indication the virus has so far reached farm workers themselves. Community health centers of the Central Coast had no confirmed cases among the 110,000 rural patients served at 31 clinics in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties, said Steve Marr, Director of Marketing and Communication for the not-for-profit network.
About 40,000 of the network clients report their occupations as farm workers. Marr said the network was setting up heated tents for triage at some of the 31 centers that don't already have separate sick rooms, Marr said.
Valdez said transportation from packing facilities appears to be operating well, a sentiment confirmed by large shippers contacted by the Times. Two reported an uptick in demand consistent with supplying grocery stores beset by panic buyers. The Trump administration has suspended time limitations on truck drivers as part of its virus response. So, what does that mean? Truck drivers can now drive crazily through the night, not have to like
adhere to
any
safety.
of the safety standards.
That's not
Thanks,
good.
President Trump.
An agricultural industry source said operations dependent on food service clients could suffer irreparable economic harm. The inability of the retail side to absorb the unused supply could products of empty bins in grocery stores while food rot in the fields.
Robobank research predicts that effects of the pandemic will last several months. Some say 18.
Yeah.
It already has affected parts of the food economy. If you think about, such as boxes it's packed in, cardboard production largely halted in China in January and February, driving up prices.
Aside from the concerns about coronavirus outbreak, growers were dealing with a more familiar uncertainty: weather. Wholesalers report that unusually heavy rains have created an extreme market for many produce items, which is what we talked about in the beginning, that before this pandemic, they were already dealing with shortage of food because of the extreme weather conditions. So unusually heavy rains have created an extreme market for many produce items, including carrots, peppers, squash, potatoes, and cauliflowers.
California's citrus industry has had to slow or pause harvest during the prolonged rains of the last week. According to California Citrus Mutual, the industry had hoped to overcome most of the supply imbalances as it shifted production north and into additional states. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah. So you got that kind of wonder, you know. So let's see here. And Dylan says,
my dad works at the college here, and apparently his department are the only ones actually going into work. The rest of the staff are getting paid full time not to come in.
Well, they've, was it one of the New York, what is he, governor?
Yeah, the Governor Cuomo.
Cuomo suggested only 50% of the workforce.
Well, he mandated that in his state, only 50% of the workforce could report to the offices. Yeah. And the rest had to work from home or not work.
And Elliot said, yes, Lynna, that's what I mean. They can't just keep on paying employees indefinitely. They're going to run out of money at some point. It's scary. And then people having to pay for their mortgages or the rent, you know, they're asking landlords to be more lenient, but how long can that be? You know, how long is that leniency? In my opinion, they just need to all of a sudden just halt the money, halt anything costing anything. You know, just have people do things out of the goodness of their heart, volunteer their time, continue to have things rolling without having to deal with that monkey on our backs, which is money.
You know, they keep talking about this V, you know, when it comes to like the economy and stuff, and how we were way up here. And now that we're in this drop now, precipitous fall from the coronavirus, that all of a sudden it's just going to go shooting right back up to a V. And it's like, how unrealistic is that to expect things to come back to a normal flow when everybody's habits are being changed? You know, it's like people are going to be hesitant about going to movie theater. They're going to maybe want to watch Netflix more. You know, maybe they're not going to want to go to a sporting event where there's 20,000 people spitting and yelling and you know, I mean,
in restaurants, you know,
it's going to be different.
Like buffet, I don't look at buffets the same anymore because it's like one of the easiest way of getting sick. You know, people are like, even though they have this little shell, but
everyone's touching the same spoon.
Yeah, you know, who's
everyone's touching. Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
it really. I mean, we've been ignorant, blissfully so, I guess, of what could actually happen. And if these bugs are becoming super bugs and things are becoming even worse, then we really have to think the way we conduct our lives. You know, people that live paycheck to paycheck, you know, people that don't know how to be savers. I've always been that type of saver for a rainy day because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Very few people know how to do that.
But then again, there's going to come a point in time where even money, you can't eat money.
No.
You can only eat food.
Yeah.
So, there's a false sense of security in even just making money.
Exactly.
Because money's not going to get you fed.
Right. Well, the fiat system was never intended to last as long as it has. I mean, back before the money system was, people bartered. I mean, I'll give you 2 chickens for some apples or whatever. People, it was a service based. It was people here, I have this, you have that, we'll exchange.
Yeah.
But the bankers came along and they created this whole concept of, people had gold and you couldn't carry that gold around. So they kept your gold in the actual safe and they gave you a note saying, you've given me this
Right.
is, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So it's all based on a house of cards, and the house of cards is crumbling down, folks. So Marcy said, yeah, this feels weird, guys. Very much so. I mean, when we were walking today in the park, I was just like, wow. I mean, and I've always known. I've always been a conspiracy theorist, and I've always known that we were going to see some amazing thing happen in our lives. But, you get to the point where you're like, well, maybe this is just my imagination, But now I'm going, damn, this is really happening. Really.
And the
happening.
speed of how it's taking place is really it's sobering, because the country is changing overnight in America, in Great Britain,
Everywhere.
in Italy, in all these different countries, in Spain, in Puerto Rico, where everyone's in lockdown right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy how
crazy.
people are really like being made to go under that Orwellian 1984 concept that was predicted way back then.
Because this has been in the works for a long time, little by little, step by step. And Dylan says,
I'm already paranoid of going to public places like restaurants and entertainment events, and the way everything is taking a pit stop, it's going to be difficult to get back to where things were before.
I believe so. I believe life as we know it is no longer the same. And talking about that, there's an article by Health and Wellness, and they make it, I guess is the publication, called the Psychological Reasons Why Generation X may be taking COVID-19 more seriously than boomers and millennials. It's like I've mentioned before, my country was a communist country, or is a communist country. So my mentality, this is not far-fetched. I've seen countries like Venezuela, Argentina, big countries collapse totally.
It wasn't too long ago, we were friends with some folks in Venezuela, and they were talking about how their country was in like an uproar and an upheaval politically situation there, and they were waiting in lines for food, and they were worried about what their world was going to be and in the future. And it was they thought it was like the end of the world. It was like
a lot of civil unrest.
There was just so much concern in their voices, and how they said, please, and at the time we were Christians, they would say, please pray for Venezuela. Tell people what's going on here, share the videos, and and it's like, whoa. So now
we're seeing
what happened in Venezuela is taking place all around the world. It's like this, there were parts of the world that were third world and recognized as third world countries, like Haiti and some parts of Latin America. And these things are now becoming like the elite are making the rest of the world into a third world country.
Well, it's the globalization, one world government, one world religion, everything globalized is Marxism at its best. And that is what has been in the making for many, many years. And it's here now. It really is. So the article reads, it appears some millennials and seniors haven't been as worried about their risk of contracting COVID-19 over the weekend. Many young people continue to go to bars and restaurants despite urging from public officials to social distance.
Others struggle to convince older parents and relatives that COVID-19 is in fact a big deal. And a Harris poll on 2,000 adults, published March 13th, found that 77% of adults over 65 and 67% of millennials, those born between 1981 and 1996, said that they are unlikely, quote unquote, to catch the virus, which has infected at least 189,000 people around the globe.
You know what they're not realizing here is that their rebellious nature is what's going to bring in martial law. So they may not catch, quote unquote, the virus, but they could be carriers, and their rebellious nature is going to, as the numbers continue to rise and the governments see that people are not cooperating, then more measures are going to be taken, and more Aurelian type measures are going to be taken, and it's going to be worse, So is it my turn?
Yep.
So who is taking COVID-19 seriously? Possibly Generation X, who are born between 1965 and 1980. Yeah, right here. According to Pew Research Center, and are often referred to as the sandwich generation because many are caring for children and elder or older parents. On social media this weekend, the hashtag Generation X trended with the latchkey generation saying that they were the most prepared to live in isolation.
From a psychological perspective, there might be some truth to this argument. Every generation will react differently to COVID-19 based on the experiences that generation has had. Paul Gianfrido, president and CEO of the nonprofit Mental Health America, tells CNBC Make It. One theory is that Gen X might have more experience working through tumultuous times as they were in the workforce during other pivotal times like 9/11 and the 2008 stock market crash.
And amid the COVID-19 pandemic, many Generation Xers who are responsible for running households, taking care of children, and caring for elderly parents must assume the brunt of stress.
The sandwich generation is concerned about parents and children, and they are also the working generation that is concerned about how they're going to pay the bills next month, Gianfrido says. In other words, they don't have a choice but to take COVID-19 more seriously.
Older generations such as baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964 and older, may have a greater set of experiences, but their attention is likely going to be turned to worrying about children and grandchildren from their own health, Gianfrido says.
While those over 65 technically have the highest risk of getting seriously ill from COVID-19, your parents are going to feel that they're still capable of taking care of themselves. David Nace, Chief Medical Officer of UPMC Senior Communities, tells CNBC Make It. That's at least in part because this may be the first time that they're considered part of the older or at-risk population, which can be a bit jarring.
Younger generations such as millennials and Generation Z have their own reasons for responding in a way that some might consider nonchalant. For one thing, these younger generations tend to stare down problems, which is a coping or survival mechanism, Gianfrido says. For example, many young people continue to go to bars and restaurants despite warning to socially isolate to stop the spread of COVID-19. Or they are like sticking their heads in the ground like ostriches, like worry about the problem when the problem gets there. And that you can't do that because that's when panic sets in, and that's how you create more problems.
They just say, I'm going to face down death because I see it so much less, he says. And studies suggest that millennials are actually more stressed than other generations, which is why they're often referred to as the worry generation. A 2018 survey from the American Psychological Association found that Gen Z adults are most likely of all generations to report poor mental health.
When you tack on something like COVID-19, you're basically not going to see as dramatic a change in their outlook because the generation is already so stressed, Gianfrido says. Regardless of your age, it's important that everyone understands more than ever that these threats are real. To that end, you should take your fears and anxiety seriously, Gianfrido says.
Don't be shamed into thinking that it's not okay to feel worried, he says. So I know for me, one of the most impactful things that happened growing up was when I was in, I think it was what, 8th grade, I think it was, and the Challenger blew up. And that was like a big deal, the space shuttle. And it was like, those moments are, the other generation has the JFK assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination to look back on and things like that. But, that, and then President Reagan getting shot at, almost killed, 9/11.
Right. That was big. That was a big
9/11.
Yeah, that was a big one. So,
but there hasn't been, for this generation, the millennials and stuff,
they haven't had anything.
They haven't had that much to have to like deal with.
And this
this has been a very peaceful time. Although we've been at war since 2001, it's been like an easygoing America.
So Dylan says, I'm more worried about the after effects than us not getting through the actual virus. So I guess in a way that's true.
And Dylan says, stop calling me out, Mark. I'm not sure what Dylan meant by that. I don't know if it's a generation thing.
Oh, generation thing.
I'm not sure.
So, 1997.
But there's so many, mental illness. People, 70% of people are on prescription drugs these days in the United States. There's definitely something going on with this younger generation because it seems like a lot of them get drowned in like a little glass of water. We were watching I Am Jazz.
Oh my gosh.
And the last part of that whole series, I think it's over. I think, I don't know what else they're going to do with it, but the last things that Jazz said was, basically, I thought that I could fix myself by transitioning, and it was just an illusion of grandeur or something like that, and basically admitting that they had a mental health issue and that they've had one. And that's the thing, you can be protective of your children as a parent. You can be irresponsible and let your kids run wild. And both of those things, both of them will be able to damage your child.
Yeah. It's, sometimes telling your kid no is a good thing. Sometimes dealing with things in life and not always having a solution is a good thing. Because it's really hard to see that there's a lot of people this day and age that are on antidepressant, anti-anxiety. They're constantly going from thing to thing to thing, thinking that as they go from thing to thing to thing, it's going to solve their problem. And they're not going inward. It's based on the external, and that's not solving anything. We're going to learn real quickly with what's happening now. It's like this challenge is going to be good for people.
Gen Xers were typically, like back in the 90s, we were being pegged as like a lazy generation, as video gamers, kids that stayed at home and they didn't leave their mom's home and they played games all the time. And they, obviously that's changed because the generation Gen X has also been able to be innovative and creative, but they always pegged us as being lazy and irresponsible.
Prophecy in the day says
China makes most of our medicine. They aren't shipping them over here.
And Florian Wollner joins us. In Italy, it's a big problem. They don't have enough space in the intensive care unit, so people are dying. They also basically said that it can be dangerous for anybody. Exactly. And at first, there was this false feeling that it's the young people don't get affected, but it looks like this virus is anybody's game. Anybody can get infected, and
the governor of New York said, it's not the virus that kills, it's the fear of the virus that can kill more people. You can create your own type of sickness by getting your body to hate itself and to hate its cells and to hate its own being, and that is even worse than an unseen virus.
Exactly. And Elliot said,
I'm in my mid-late 20s, and I don't think I know anybody in my age group who isn't depressed and lost in life.
And that's really sad. That's really sad because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that throughout. It's like you look at people and they don't even need a disaster to be depressed. I see a lot of people, individuals that are part of the LGBT community that are very depressed, very never satisfied. There's always what's next. And so this right here, right now that's happening, this is disastrous because a generation and group of people that are already dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine this. Either you was a swim or sink. Either they get better and they realize, wow, I really have something now to worry about, and before they had nothing, So,
yeah, no, it's a very interesting time,
totally,
day and age that we're living in, because the things that are going to affect people, prior generations, they would have just done whatever they had to do, resolved to get stronger, fight, and work together and associate with, getting ourselves out of a situation. And it seems like people are just drowning.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end. I have to isolate myself.
No toilet paper. What do I do?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't. It's like they don't know how to ration food. You get stressed and they're going to eat all their food supply. And, and it's like, now's not the time to be picky on what you're eating. And you got to learn how to stretch things out. And
I mean, I don't know in prior generations if grandma and grandpa would have hoarded toilet paper like we're doing with this generation. I mean, with this age of life that we're living in, I think that they would have been sharing with each other. I think that they would have been giving to each other. They would have been helping each other. And it's really an indictment on the way society has become. It's like it's really something else to see.
Exactly.
Because there's really no reason that we should be short on anything.
People should come together. What did you read today that people are actually getting stomach upset and diarrhea? So it's almost like prophetic.
From the coronavirus.
Yeah, from the corona. So it's almost prophetic. All the toilet paper hoarders, they knew that they were going to get the runs. So they were like, oh, we need to have all this toilet paper. Anyway, Florian Wollner says,
mostly for older people and people with another illness, but there are reported cases of very young and healthy people with bad pneumonia.
Yes, definitely.
There's so much information coming out of Italy, and the people are saying, America, we didn't take this seriously. 10 days ago, we were just like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Here we are. And we're making the most of it, but we wish we would have been prepared.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the Italians in Italy made videos on how to try to get us to not make the mistakes that they made, but no one's listening, and that's the problem. Dylan says, Elliot, oh yeah, but I really don't think that my poor mental health has gotten any worse since any of this. And prophecy end of days.
We will always have to figure out our problems by ourselves without the government. Think for yourself.
Yeah, but the thing is, they want to think for us, and people have been so used to being told what to do, and it's like now we're going to see a lot of things take place. Dylan says, Florian, yeah, my best friend got really sick about a month ago, and I freaked out when all this came about, but she just had a bad case of pneumonia and is now recovering quickly. So we found this article on Yahoo News. China's coronavirus recovery is all fake, whistleblowers and residents claim. So it's interesting because there's something in me that's telling me that there's more to this virus than meets the eye. Besides the orchestration of things that are taking place and being used as a tool, I think this virus is multifaceted. I think you get it and you think you're getting better, and I think something else is going to happen. It's like one of those, it's a very smart virus. It goes in, it disables a bunch of your amino acids, and it goes in and it does certain things, and it makes you feel like, hey, everything's okay, but it's still in there. It's kind of like a lingering, like when you get the measles and then it lays dormant, you get shingles later on. I have a feeling in my gut that there's more to this than meets the eye. So China claims of how it's handling coronavirus recovery should be taken with more than a few grains of salt.
Even before COVID-19 became a global crisis, Chinese leaders had been criticized for their handling of the situation and lack of transparency about the disease's progression. Things now look like they are on the upswing, and businesses even appear to be headed back to work. But whistleblowers and local officials tell Kaixan that it is just a carefully crafted ruse.
Beijing has spent much of the outbreak pushing districts to carry on business as usual, with some local governments subsidizing electricity costs and even installing mandatory productivity quotas. Zhejiang, a province east of the epicenter city of Wuhan, claimed as of February 24th it had restored 98.6% of its pre-coronavirus work capacity.
But civil servants tell Kaixan that businesses are actually faking these numbers. Beijing had started checking Zhejiang businesses' electricity consumption levels, so district officials ordered the companies to start leaving their lights and machinery on all day to drive the numbers up. One civil servant said businesses have reportedly falsified staff attendance logs as well. They, quote, would rather waste a small amount of money on power than irritate local officials, unquote, Kaixan says.
In Wuhan, officials have tried to make it appear that recovery efforts are going smoothly. But when central leaders personally survey disinfecting regimens and food delivery, local officials make a special effort for them and them alone, one resident told Kaixan. And in a video circulating on social media, residents can be seen shouting at visiting leaders from the apartment where they're being quarantined. Fake. It's all fake.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because you have a country that is a communist country that is able to control their people in a very draconian manner, shutting down a whole city of 11 million in Wuhan and isolating people, quarantining people. People are never to be seen again type scenarios. And then they say, oh, there haven't been any deaths reported yesterday. The first time, no deaths reported in Wuhan. And it's like, how do you trust what they're saying? How do you believe what's going on? I mean, why should we just blindly follow what reports are saying?
Exactly. And, I don't know. We have to be very mindful and keep our ears and eyes open, not believe everything that's being said. Do you really think that if something really bad was in the mist, that they're going to tell us?
Yeah, like what they were saying earlier in the chat, there's something more ominous looming over this whole crisis. Something else is being orchestrated, something else is being unveiled, something else is being prepped and prepared for the mass of world population to have to deal with, whether that is a, alien unveiling, revealing, whether it's global climate change. Some are saying we're going into an ice age. That we're at a solar minimum, and that those in power are taking advantage, the globalists are taking advantage of the fact that our countries, the world is not able to be as efficient in growing crops and things.
Yeah.
And that basically they know what's happening. I mean, I heard something about the times when Thomas Jefferson back in the 1700s was alive, and how the growing seasons were cut short, and people weren't able to get crops like they needed to, and there was famine. And now they know this is happening. cyclical things are taking place, but they're taking advantage of these cyclical events.
And Elliot says
the UK didn't listen or take precautions either. Schools are only just now closing.
And see, that's what's going to happen. It's like right now, the numbers aren't, because people aren't being tested. There's not enough tests. When they start testing a bunch of people, when more people start dying, then that's when this thing is really going to explode. And Prophecy End of Days says that's the problem. You don't know what's real and who is telling the truth. That is so true. Here, there's another article. The coronavirus, half of California's population could be infected within 8 weeks. 8 weeks, half of the population. You know, this is a brand new article today. Roughly half of California population could become infected with the virus. The state governor wrote to Donald Trump asking for resources and detailing the escalation of the infection across the region.
We project that roughly 56% of our population, 25.5 million people, will be infected with the virus over an 8-week period, he wrote. In some parts of our state, our case rate is doubling every 4 days.
Fuck.
I know, it's a nap.
Moreover, we have community-acquired transmission in 23 countries with an increase of 44 community-acquired infection in 24 hours.
Mr. Newsom asked Mr. Trump to deploy the hospital ship USNS Mercy to Los Angeles to provide relief for healthcare in the badly affected region until the 1st of September.
A healthcare system that has already been
decimated.
Decimated. I mean, it's like it's a mess on a good day. Imagine now. This resource will help decompress the healthcare delivery system to allow the Los Angeles region to ensure that it has the ability to address critical acute care needs, the governor wrote.
California has been severely affected by the outbreak of the pandemic, having seen a surge in COVID-19 cases in the last few days, with at least 751 people infected with the virus and 13 deaths.
The U.S. has recorded cases of COVID-19 in all 50 states and death from disease in nearly half the states across the country.
Mr. Trump has faced criticism for his response to the outbreak, which he previously had sought to play down. Now the Republican is promising a massive package of state aid for companies and workers while ramping up testing.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere you turn, there's a slew of articles, people being stranded in other countries, can't get back.
There's National Guard is on standby in over 25 states, and they're ready to possibly even, the governor of California said, impose martial law if needed. So he's honing in on the 60,000 homeless, ironically, that are in the state of California as being, carriers potentially of the virus. And what happens then? Are they going to dispatch the National Guard to round up all the homeless people in the state of California and put them in FEMA camps? I mean, is this where we're heading towards at this point in time?
It's pretty scary. And according to another article, Canada-U.S. border expected to be closed by Saturday. So, I mean, this stuff is really, I don't think people really get the gravity of what's taking place here.
Well, they're being told, by major news media and stuff, what to do. And then you see those images of the kids out on the beaches in Clearwater and in Miami and stuff. And they're literally just throwing caution to the wind and saying, I've planned this spring break. Oh, and one thing I was telling you this morning, spring break. What's the break from? Because you're not going back to school after this is all done. It's not like you're going to be able to just get back to college and take classes unless they're going to take them online. But, these kids are like, oh, I just turned 21. I want to have a good time. I want to party. I want to have fun, and there's a whole population of retired folk that live in Clearwater or in Miami that are potentially being put at risk by these young people who just want to have a good
Yeah,
time.
and it's not all about having a good time, It's like, everything's just falling apart, and we have to like put our way of life as we know it aside because it's not going to be the same, And I know it's hard, but what's the alternative? If we don't do what we're being told, we're going to be forced. And I don't know about you, but I really don't feel like having to deal with, like today when we went to the park and the security guard came up to us. That would be the wave of the future. Everything, once it will all become very much a police state, military state, which I don't know, and then people are going to rebel because it's like my fear is how people are going to behave. On a good day, they don't behave very well. Under stress and under a situation where people have guns and it's going to be a war, a real out war.
Well, some are saying that a potential, where's your paper says prophecy
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
The possibility for an actual civil war taking place in the country is a real possibility.
Very much so. Very much so.
I mean, they're telling people, preppers are saying, this is a time when you can prepare and grow your own garden. It's a great time for you to, be resourceful and save and have all this food and supply and everything. And it's like, all it takes is an electronic pulse from one of these, defense army Humvees or something to just impulse you, and then you can't do anything. You have to like walk out of your house because that sound is just piercing your eardrums, and they'll take your crops, they'll take your food, they'll take everything, your guns, they'll take everything. They don't play like that.
Well, already here it says National Guard activation expected to double by weekend to help combat coronavirus. By the weekend, I mean, it seems like Saturday they're going to be closing the Canada border. The National Guard is prepping to respond to the coronavirus pandemic as if the nation were facing 54 separate hurricanes in every state, territory, and the District of Columbia. Air Force General Joseph Lengel, chief of the National Guard Bureau, told reporters Thursday.
National Guard, which is composed of the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard, is a 450,000 strong reserve force organized across all 50 states, as well as Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands and the District of Columbia. Guard units report primarily to the governors of their states, but can be federalized and placed under the command of the Department of Defense.
Well, the way they're asking, because every state has a different policy and it's not working, they're looking for federalization. That's what it might end up being. Governors in 27 states have so far activated a total of 2,050 Guard members in response to the pandemic, according to Lengel, who added that he expects the numbers of activated Guard personnel to double by the weekend and then sort of keep increasing. I'm expecting tens of thousands to be used inside the states as it grows, he said. This could quickly blossom in the next couple of weeks.
Quote, a historic event demands a historic response, Lengel said, adding that the Guard is spread across nearly every zip code of the country and is the ideal force to help communities respond to the coronavirus threat. When disaster strikes, we don't have to mobilize from some base. We pack a lunch, we go to work, because we're already there in the communities where these events are taking place, he said. We live there. We can respond faster.
So Lengel indicated that the Guard would play a key role in testing for the coronavirus. We expect the total number of Guardsmen activated will increase rapidly as test kits become available, he said. 6 members of the Guard have tested positive for COVID-19, according to Angelo.
The Guard is already administering tests in Colorado, New York, and Rhode Island, while across the country it's also involved in planning, command, and control and logistical support for local communities' pandemic responses, he added.
So in the new Rochelle and epicenter of the outbreak in New York, Guard members are distributing food, while in South Florida, more than 500 Army National Guard soldiers are helping to collect samples for drive-through coronavirus testing in Broward County. Lenjo said, adding that guard units across the country are conducting similar missions. We could be the transportation mechanism that actually delivers and equips the various drive-through test sites that are out there, he said.
Echoing other defense officials, Lenjo warned that mobilizing Guard medical personnel to combat the spread of the coronavirus means removing them from their civilian jobs treating patients in their communities. There's kind of a zero-sum game here, he said.
Guard medical units could make their equipment available to civilian medical facilities, Lenjo acknowledged, but he added that it would not amount to much. It is a relatively small contribution when you look at the scope and scale of what this might be across the nation, he said.
Guard forces under the state authority might also assist state and local law enforcement organizations, something that active duty forces under the Defense Department usually lack the legal authority to do, according to Lenjo. This might occur if those police forces need manpower to backfill personnel who have fallen sick, he added. Anything that law enforcement naturally does, they can be augmented with National Guard troops, he said.
And however, Lenjo said he had received no report of local authorities requesting Guard troops for law enforcement function. I don't see any demand signal that's demanding that we're going to use the National Guard in that kind of scenario, he said.
With hurricane season approaching, coastal communities under self-quarantine face two potential disasters. Asked what the Guard would do to assist, Lenjo said that although there are plans for evacuation on the shelf in those states, we may have to adapt how we do it if people are under quarantine. We'll just have to deal with that when it comes to it.
That sounds kind of a pretty scary situation there, just as with hurricanes and other national disasters. According to Lenjo, if a state fighting the pandemic has needs that its own National Guards cannot fill, it can request help from another state via an agreement called an Emergency Management Assistance Compact.
Lenjo said he did not anticipate any moves to federalize Guard unit to cope with the coronavirus pandemic. That would not make sense in this situation, he added, arguing that keeping the Guard working for the governors allows for more flexibility.
Yeah,
it's getting interesting. I mean, because the potential for them to become militaristic in their services is very much a possibility. Yes. They can aid in whatever way they're needed. So if we end up in some kind of a food crisis in this country, then the National Guard would be mobilized in order to
hand out
help with that.
Yeah, hand out foods and things of that nature. Prophecy End of Day says it's a huge possibility the Virginia gun grab was a test, but as it did was join all the militias together as one. That's another scary thing. You know, you got militia that could get together and go out there and try to take the laws into their hands. And I mean, it could be a wild, wild west situation.
Dylan says, I didn't realize that this was even a global thing until spring break ended and I was notified we wouldn't be going back to school. It literally hit me like a brick. So fast, everything just changed. It was just last Wednesday when the United States attitude changed about this, because the president came on and said what he said and everything changed. NBA stopped, and then every other sports team stopped.
It's been a domino effect, you know. And Dylan said it seemed forever since it started, but it hasn't been that long. Yeah. Marcy said it does seem like forever. Yeah, it's scary stuff, you know.
But I think it's just, I mean, when the president says, I can change anything, you know, I can change the rules, and these rules have been in place for a long time. They're old rules and they need to be knocked down. And, you know, we're seeing how both sides of the aisle are working together in a, you know, in cooperation with each other, and they're allowing these changes to happen. And I'm grateful for the FDA allowing for these new things to be done and cutting the red tape. And, you know, the red tape was there for a reason. Checks and balances in this country have been there for a reason, because we didn't want to give the executive branch too much authority, too much power. And when the president says that, you know, the red tape's being able to be cut and we're able to get over things that we wouldn't have, it would have taken years or months to do, I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. That just means that presidential executive authority is becoming more and more powerful, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this is a new article that came in. It's spring break over. Local Florida officials close beaches after governor refuses to. So now they're going above his head. Local officials in Florida, towns and cities are taking it upon themselves to close beaches amid the coronavirus outbreak after Governor Ron DeSantis refuses to, even as spring breakers and others crowd the shores.
All the height of the college break rush, At the height of the college break rush, DeSantis said Tuesday that he would not order the beaches closed, but he did limit parties on beaches to 10 people per group.
DeSantis said it's not uniform throughout the state that you're seeing massive crowds at beaches, despite report and images of people packing the sand.
Still, the mayors of Miami Beach and Fort Lauderdale, two of the most popular beach destinations in the state, issued orders to close their beaches last Sunday. Public beaches in Tampa are also closed until further notice, city officials said.
Naples announced Wednesday that it will be closed its beaches until March 30th.
All public beaches in Miami-Dade County will close at Thursday night. As of Thursday night, tonight, Mayor Carlos A. Jimenez announced Wednesday parks, non-essential retail, private educational facilities, casinos, and other recreational and entertainment activities are also ordered closed or restricted as of Thursday night, he said.
On the state's Gulf Coast, beaches in Lee County will also close Thursday night, according to county officials. Popular beach vacation destination Fort Myers and Sanibel area are in Lee County.
On Wednesday, Clearwater voted to close its beaches starting Monday. Clearwater Beach was relatively busy Wednesday with residents and visitors who said they chose not to cancel planned vacations over coronavirus fears.
I feel like we're not going to stop our life because of that, but we'll definitely keep precautions, said Ana Maria Nowak, 20, who was there with a friend. We didn't come with a group of friends. We're going to stay by ourselves and not share our things.
College students and younger people in general have been criticized for not taking the virus seriously and for seeming to disregard that they could carry it to higher risk people like the elderly.
Clearwater decisions to close its beaches comes as neighboring beaches could stay open. Pinellas County, where Clearwater is located, will not order beaches closed, the sheriff department said in a statement Wednesday night. County officials did not respond to a request for comment Thursday. So nearly 330 people in Florida have tested positive to COVID-19. The state health department reported Wednesday night 8 Florida residents have died. I think it's time for them to take this serious,
Yeah, it's definitely time for people to reconsider the severity of the situation and to realize that this could become a much greater problem for the entire country, and not just the virus itself, but everything that is taking place with our economy, everything that's taking place with the way of life as we know it. It's changing. People are obviously, there are so many people out there that had feelings about something like this being potentially taking place. Predictions were being made back a long time ago, and people laughed at people like that. Mark started saying things back in 2008, and people were laughing about that. I mean, stuff, if you guys pick up his album from 2010, you'll see that there are so many things that are very applicable these days to the current situation that's taking place. And, maybe these crazy preppers weren't so crazy after all.
Yeah.
Maybe these people that sounded the alarm and said, that the government was up to something and that they would use a situation in order to get other things in place. Maybe that wasn't crazy talk.
No.
Some people are saying that, the messing with our signals and 5G and all the things that are taking place with, this new way of communicating and stuff is nothing to do with anything, but who knows what's happening? We really don't know. All we do know is that the people that are to blame are probably never going to get blamed for this.
Yeah, and Becky joins us. Let's see here. I'm trying to see where we left off.
Dylan said, LOL, people, wow, people love their sand, but I shouldn't talk. I'd probably do the same thing should our closest beach close.
Yeah, but we can't just think about ourselves. We got to think of others, and there's just people aren't taking this as serious as should be taken. And Becky says, unsure of what this really is, it seems to be the beginning of something that help us accept whatever they may have planned. I truly believe that there's something bigger that we're not being told. This is just a slither of what's taking place,
And Becky says, I personally don't know one single person who has the virus. Anyone else?
I don't know anybody who has it.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any way for people to know yet.
Right.
They're saying that the numbers of people infected could be a lot higher.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I know that there's reports of people dying. I mean, there was a family, I think, that 6 got infected, or 7, and 3 have died. But I don't know them personally.
Marcy says, me either.
Yeah.
Becky. Dylan says, Becky, not me. Been several close calls, but none who have actually been diagnosed.
So
Prophecy in a Day says 5G can also be used as a military weapon.
Yeah.
I don't know much about 5G. All I know is that it's another network for cellular communication. I guess I'm not really up on.
Well, they say that it really messes with your immune system, that it could cause all sorts of problems, that it's too strong. I mean, on a good day, the 4G, 3G, the cell towers are unhealthy for you. So this is supposed to be like even greater. And Florian said they're in Germany, but they know some people. Yeah, it's scary stuff. And, I'm really concerned about the homeless situation and what's going to happen with that. We have a ton of homeless. And I mean, it's just, there's been documentaries talking about that, and we've actually lived through it. We lived in Portland. There was a ton of homeless there. California has a slew of them as well. They're rushing to try to contain virus among the homeless. That's something that, is going to be a big deal. Where are they going to house? I mean, you look at all these tents everywhere, and on a good day, that is unhygienic. I mean, when we lived in Portland, we went to downtown, and the smells, and it was just like not a good situation.
Becky says, my age group have the best recovery rate, 99.2. If we have no other medical issues, it's a damn cold virus, which has never had a cure.
Yeah. And prophecy says frequencies just like low frequencies are like microwave. Yeah.
Oh, 5G.
5G,
yeah. Elliot says, I was thinking of the homeless today, too. It breaks my heart.
Yeah. And I think there was also one case of a dog getting it, but I'm not sure if that was true. And prophecy, end of day, says, are the homeless going to be scooped up and put in FEMA camps? That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, where else? They can't just leave them. They're getting sick, and they just can't leave them out there to expose other people. In Sacramento, California, home to the largest homeless population in the country, California officials are rushing to get tens of thousands of people off the streets and into shelters and tents to slow the spread of the coronavirus among one of the most vulnerable and difficult to reach groups.
There's been only one confirmed death among California's estimated 150,000 homeless people, but authorities believe that without swift intervention, it's only a matter of time before the virus sweeps through homeless encampments and gathering spots where people are in close proximity and can't practice proper hygiene, like hand washing.
Los Angeles has suspended an ordinance requiring tents to come down at night, as lined up dozens of trailers to use as isolation shelters. A charitable group in San Francisco was passing out tents so people could use them to separate themselves from others. Both cities also are using recreational centers and other large open indoor spaces to create emergency shelters that have more space between beds.
Mel Tilakaratne, a leading Los Angeles homeless advocate, said Thursday that people living in encampments are beginning to feel the fear over the virus. He's the founder of the Shower of Hope, which contracts with local governments to provide pop-up stations with showers and other services for homeless people.
They're asking, how can I get hand sanitizer? How can I get information? Tilly Cartoni, whatever, said Governor Gavin Newsom has directed state and local officials to rent hotel rooms and deploy travel trailers to house the homeless. Lawmakers had given the Democratic governor up to $1 billion to spend on the crisis, and on Wednesday he announced that the first $150 million would go to local governments to house the homeless.
A significant portion of the homeless population is addicted to drugs or alcohol. Like Dylan said, can't be easy with a lot of homeless people being addicts or former addicts can mess with your immune system.
Yeah.
Conditions that in the past have made them resistant to accept help. Newsom has said he is not worried about that, adding that the state has the capacity to encourage people off the streets.
And you kind of wonder if this is going to be a way of trying to clean it all up. Are they, I mean, the conspiracy theorist in me, says that this is one way. Will they ever be out in the streets again? This is one way of cleaning up. There's a lot of people that say that this virus is a cleanup virus of what they're trying to do with the economy and everything else. I think there's a lot of mythology about resistance. I think it's widely overstated. Newsom told reporters this week, I'm not ratcheting up a mindset of enforcement police state.
Tillicratney said it's hard to imagine a scenario where authorities are rounding up homeless people exhibiting signs of the coronavirus and forcibly bringing them to shelters. However, he acknowledged that some won't want to go. Not everyone's going to want to come in. But if we can target those that are the most vulnerable, we can fill a lot of beds.
And they will probably have to take it by force, because they're not going to willingly want to do it. Ron Lawrence, president of the California Association of Police Chiefs, said in cases where people refuse to comply, police have the authority to enforce health orders to prevent the spread of disease. Disobeying is a misdemeanor, punishable for up to $1,000 fine or 90 days in jail. And the people that work with the homeless, we watched a documentary not long ago that they go there and they get them to come to groups and stuff like that, and they literally have hands on. They're like that close.
Right.
That's going to spread to a lot of the workers as well.
Becky says 5G exposure symptoms mimic the symptoms of this coronavirus. Things that make you go,
Yeah, we were walking today and saw a couple and thinking that could probably be 5G. We've been having, I don't know if it's allergies because it's blooming here. Little sniffly, you woke up a little bit nasally, our throat kind of a little, but it's like, it's hard to know if it's allergy season, if it's, the 5G towers, if it's whatever it is, we don't have a fever. And so, but we're pretty much isolating. We just went to the park.
Yeah.
Can't go to the gym. We did our food supply run a few days ago. So we're kind of keeping ourselves away from other people.
Right here.
Okay, so Marcy says, we already have places to put homeless with the virus or people who need help. Yeah.
Becky says, prophecy, I think anyone who refuses the coronavirus vaccine will be scooped up.
I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, although they say it will take a year before that vaccine is ready. So they say, I, for one, will never get vaccinated anymore. Lock me up, kill me. I refuse, period. And she said
she's never had a flu shot, so
yeah,
she'll never get it.
Yeah. And what was it somebody said the other day on something we were watching? They were added to the water supply.
The thing is, Becky, is that they can make you do it regardless of how you feel. I mean, they could do it by force. They could do it without you even knowing it. They could do it in ways that would even be imperceptible.
Yeah, like they're saying about they would take away the monetary system as we know it, and they would either implant a chip or put a ban or something, and that would be the only way that you'd be able to get food, and pay for things. And if people that refuse to take the shot, they will literally just shut the system down. Like that Sandra Bullock movie, remember that they made her disappear. She no longer, her idea was like she wasn't there.
Right.
Another movie called Time, where what's that singer, Justin Beverlin, Justice.
I don't know.
Justice
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, he played in the movie called Time. That's another really interesting movie where you had things were paid through time. If you worked, you got time. If you got fined or you bought stuff, time was removed. So when your time ran out, you literally just fell dead. You know. So there's all sorts of stuff.
Well, yeah, and there's also the fact that I grew up in a Christian household, so I was told about the mark of the beast how many times, and you couldn't buy or sell, you couldn't live without having taken the mark. And you know, I mean, when they talk about a cashless society, they talk about, you know, not being able to live unless you follow the instructions and the rules of the governing authorities, unless you take this mark, whatever it is, an RFID chip or some kind of nanotech that goes inside of you that lives, you know,
it's, you know, I wouldn't want to take it at all either, because I know what the ramifications of that is going to be, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how they're going to force it and what they're going to do, you know.
They said that the president wanted people to get measles shots. 250 cases of measles popped up, and he was telling everybody that he would want to advocate for mandated measles shots for something as small as the measles, right?
Yeah.
And to think that after all of this controversy, all of this uproar about the pandemic of the first pandemic of the 21st century, that he would not advocate for all Americans to be vaccinated. I think it's very possible that he will implement a forced vaccination of Americans from COVID-19.
Yeah, because if it gets to the point where it's supposedly very dangerous, they'll do anything and everything. And Becky says, chemtrail much? LOL. Yeah. I mean, who knows what kind of nanotechnology they're releasing with that. Dylan said it seems
weird that they would jail them for resisting. Didn't you post something about them releasing people from prison because of the virus outbreak? What's the logic in that?
I know. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And we just got 3 confirmed cases in my city. Wow.
Wow, Darcy, and you don't live in a really big town either. Yeah, I think with the testing that's taking place, there's going to be a lot more.
So anyway, Joseph Gasson, a professor of John Jay College of Criminal Justice and a former New York City police sergeant, said police could take into custody people who are showing severe virus symptoms but refuse to accept help. And that's what they'll do with the vaccine.
He said they're a threat to themselves and others at that point. He said, Giacoloni said police would likely be allowed to use force if necessary to transport the person to a hospital if they are showing obvious signs of medical distress. In the case of COVID-19 symptoms, he said the person would likely need to be having severe respiratory problems or issues walking or moving. A runny nose isn't going to cut it, he said.
You know, I just thought what Dylan said. Well, maybe they're trying to vacate the prisons of like blue collar crimes and stuff like that to bring in people that are refusing, you know, to bring in the homeless. Maybe that's what they're doing. The number of homeless people up and down the West Coast has surged in recent years. And Seattle and Portland, yes, we saw that firsthand, Oregon, are among the cities also taking steps to protect them. I am so glad that we got out of there.
Volunteers and agency workers have found out in the Portland area to visit around 2,000 homeless people, Multnomah County spokesman Dennis Thoreau said.
People have told us they were worried they might have been forgotten, that it was nice that someone was just giving them a little bit of something, he said.
For most people, the virus causes only mild or moderate symptoms, such as fever and cough. For some, especially older adults and people with existing health problems, it can cause more severe illness, including pneumonia. The vast majority of people recover.
In California, Sacramento is among more than 15 counties that have ordered virtually everyone to stay home. For the homeless, that means limiting encampment to 10 people or fewer. Sheriff Scott Jones said that as a last resort, People who refuse could be issued citation, but they would be jailed in only the most extreme cases.
In San Francisco, officials are waiting for travel trailers to arrive from the state to isolate homeless people who test positive for the virus. They're seeking 3,500 hotel rooms to quarantine people who need it.
Tran Rohrer, San Francisco Department of Human Service Director, said it's difficult for officials to protect the homeless in traditional shelter setting. About 2,000 adults are in shelters where social distancing isn't possible. An additional 19,000 people live in low-income housing with shared bathrooms and kitchen.
Rohr said the city plans to monitor people in shelters, hoping to identify those with symptoms and who need isolation. At least one homeless person has died from the coronavirus. Officials in Santa Clara County at the southern end of the San Francisco Bay said they are trying to figure out where the person lived and whom they were around.
And that's hard to do, pretty hard to do. Let's see here. 2 people who showed signs of illness are taken to a motel with a box of medical supplies and a food box so they can isolate. When this thing started, we went into full crisis mode. There is a huge sense of urgency, and I think everyone is doing everything they can.
Jennifer Friedenbach, executive director of the Coalition on Homeless in San Francisco, said she wants to see the city commander empty hotel rooms. She said some shelters have more than 100 people on the floor. Others are in bunk beds in close quarters, all while sharing bathrooms.
That's like breeding grounds. They're still allowing people to come in for one night at a time. It's absolutely insane, she said. Homeless people are really nervous. They want to prevent the spread of the virus, and they're not being given the opportunity to do so. Crazy stuff.
So, yeah,
let's see.
Darcy said, we just got, Darcy mentioned that. Like you said, the powers that be want humanity in fear. To actually need it, so much of humanity will accept whatever is to come.
And let's see, Marcy says, same old stuff. And Darcy's asking Marcy, what same old stuff?
What about other health issues like heart attacks, strokes, car accidents, etc.? It seems like all hospitals are set up for the CV.
That's why they're getting the Navy involved. I think there's a couple of ships, Navy ships, that are going to be playing, hospital and taking all the other cases in so that people don't get infected with the COVID-19 virus pandemic. Mark, that makes a lot of sense. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Marcy says, we got, I think, 19 confirmed cases in New Haven, Connecticut.
And Marcy, that sounds like new stuff to me, says Darcy. And
That's hard.
I don't know how many cases there have been here, but I know at least 2 cases have been from College of Public School staff.
500 cases, says Florian in Hamburg, in Germany.
That's a lot of cases.
That's a lot.
But they're probably testing more people too than we are here. Because there's hardly any. Everybody that I've heard talk in the news that they won't test them. They go through a slew of stuff. They're on the phone. They get hung up. They have to go through this jump hoop thing before they get tested. So I don't think many people have been tested yet.
I don't think so.
I think that's why we haven't seen the numbers that we should be seeing. Darcy says people are now getting offended by people saying that the virus came from China. There's a lot of rumors going on that it was actually the military that sent it over there, and it's tit for tat. No, he said, you said, and I don't know what's real anymore. There's so much stuff going out there. Florian said it's pretty bad in Germany. And she also says,
it'll be much more, but we're basically not allowed to leave our houses. I think what people don't really understand here is that the United States has been guilty of other things in the past. Native American populations were given cancerous drugs, were exposed to really, really bad things in testing sites and stuff for nuclear weapons in the Bimini Islands, where the indigenous population was affected by severe, disease and stuff after nuclear explosions were being blown up all around them, and they were told that it was okay. They were brave, and that they were being used for the benefit of humanity, and that nothing was going to happen. And I mean, the island of one of the islands in Puerto Rico has constantly had to deal with disease and stuff from having been used as a place where military planes would bomb and use different materials and gases and things. It's not unheard of.
No,
it really isn't. It's not unheard of that a country would allow these things to take place.
And Darcy, to answer or to on your comment that SJW culture is so cringe. The thing is that people that have come, like when they called it the Spanish flu back in 1917, the virus, it has a name. It may have originated in China, although there's other rumors that it did not. To call it that, there are people that are very prejudiced and take, it's like with the trans ordeal, when people are getting all upset at trans people now and they're attacking us. The same thing goes. There have been people that are Chinese that have been attacked because there's a lot of people that can't really reason correctly and they want to blame somebody and they take it out on people. So we have to be very careful how we say things.
Yeah, and the president of the United States really just adding fuel to the fire, as he's known to have done with other things with regards to racist commentary, for him to just go out there and say, this was the Chinese virus. It's like, it really doesn't help anything other than, I guess, his pride in order to...
Yeah, because he got upset that they said that their troops, our troops here in the United States, were the ones that brought it over there in some sort of experiment. So in retaliation, he went ahead and called it, it's calling that now. And it's like tit for tat, it's like, gosh, I mean, I'm not political and I'm not going to say anything bad about him per se, but sometimes he doesn't act like an adult.
Right.
In my humble opinion. I mean, I think that I look at the governor of New York and I think, gosh, that would have been a great president. Somebody who takes matters seriously. He's not constantly patting himself in the back. I did this and this is the best thing ever. And it's like, dude, really? Right. You don't need to pat yourself in the back that way. You just run the country right,
Elliot says, we have over 3,000 in the UK at the moment, 12 in my city.
Wow. Yeah, pretty sad stuff. I mean, the world as we know
LA is locked down now. Yikes.
It's locked down.
LA is locked down
Wow.
now. That's a new one.
Yeah.
Is that like the start of
yeah.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
What's going to take place?
Probably. I just got to find ways of dealing with everything, It's like trying to make life as normal as possible. It's like, now I got to figure out a way to how we're going to train. I know that I've been gaining a ton of muscle because I've been lifting pretty heavy. There's only so much you can do without a gym. You can do pull-ups, push-ups, and things of that nature. But I tend to lose weight pretty quickly, so, oh well, life as we know.
See, the thing is, Darcy, that we don't know that. We don't know for a fact that that's literally what happened. There are reports that, yes, it came from China, and there are reports that it didn't, that it originated in Fort Detrick in Maryland. So we don't know. And I frankly don't trust the news. I don't trust the president. I don't trust the government in telling me what took place and what happened. It's like one group of people are saying one thing and the other one is saying the other. When the swine flu hit, when the bird flu hit, it made China become more dependent on American pork imports. So it killed their chicken populations. I mean, we don't know what goes on with governments when they decide to attack another country. They may do it biologically. They may do it by means of attacking their economy. I mean, we just had a president that was elected through, you know, I don't know how, but, you know, there was Russian something going on, and that was obviously something going on.
You know,
we just don't
we
know.
talked about it the other day regarding all these things that have been proven, how countries do things to, what was it that we had it the other day? Sabotage other countries. And I mean, this is, you know, I just found the CNN World, Chinese people that promotes a conspiracy theory. And you got to be leery when they call it conspiracy theory, because we're seeing a lot of conspiracy theory come to fruition, that U.S. military brought coronavirus to Wuhan, and the president is denying it, and a bunch of people are denying it. But who's telling the truth? You know, this is posting to. Let's see here. There was a CDC was caught on the spot. When did patient zero begin in the U.S.? How many people are infected? What are the names of the hospital? It might be the U.S. Army who brought the epidemic to Wuhan. Be transparent. Make public your data. U.S. owes us an explanation. And that was tweeted by Lijian Zaho.
But it really doesn't matter where it originally was found to exist. It's where did it come from?
Right.
You know, was it imported into the country of China? And if that's the case, that it was imported into the country of China, that means that it didn't originate in China. It could have originated outside of the country and was sent there. We don't know. That's why I can't really say for certain,
right.
Oh yes, it came from China, that's why I need to call it the Chinese virus.
Right.
You know.
And that's kind of like, there's no need to call it that. I mean, it does have a scientific name to it, you know, COVID-19. And I think it's less harmful for a group of individual. And being an immigrant, you know, which I was called a spick, you know, and mistreated and made fun of, you know, we've got to be very, you know, mindful and careful how we say things, because it could harm other people, especially us coming from a minority. You know, we're trans, we're Hispanic, you know, just, you know, we got to be a little bit more mindful.
Anything that would cause another group of people to feel like they're being discriminated against, coming from what is, I guess, known the leader of the free world, when he says things that implicate racism and discrimination, it's just not a very smart move, you know, to do that.
In Prophecy Day of Age says, and the base, what is it? Was it a bioweapon? Never know.
We don't know. We don't know. Like Mark said, it could have a dormancy effect where it lies inside the body, and then at a later time it could be activated, maybe through 5G. Who knows? And
the real effects will be seen. Right now, people aren't worried because no one's bleeding through their eyes, no one's having convulsions, no one's doing anything like that. But how do we know that this is not a 2-part series? You know, when you think that, okay, you're healthy, it's done, it's over with, and all of a sudden, kaboom. You don't know. And for them to be doing what they're doing,
it just seems like there's way too many coincidences all lining up at the same time. You know, there's all this going on with the census in this country, and, you know, the whole issue with ID 2020, all these things that are happening all at the same time. And they're just, it's just too ironic that all of this is happening. The economy is imploding. People are losing jobs. Like they had to lay off, like one employer had to lay off 9,000 employees or something.
And you got all these CEOs stepping down that we spoke about the other day, you know. And I mean, there's just something doesn't seem right. And so many things happening daily. It's just like a domino effect. And Dylan says, wherever the heck it is, it actually came from, better stop farting around so it doesn't get worse. No more they did this or they did that. We need to stop accusing and just try to deal with it as best as we can. Very true. Very true.
Well, I mean, Darcy, you can have your opinion if you want to, but when someone calls it the Kung flu, when someone calls it the Chinese virus, I would take offense as a minority. I would take offense to someone saying that because it's not a matter of giving it some kind of a some kind of an ethnicity.
Right.
This is a virus,
Yeah.
and whether it originated in China, Tibet, Nepal, Berlin, wherever it originated in, it's a virus. It's a
Right.
common virus that happens in the animal kingdom,
Mhm.
and it's not a Chinese virus. It's just a virus that
Right.
happens in the animal kingdom that slipped into the human population.
Right.
But
And if it was
I mean,
biologically created, or in a laboratory and taken there, where was this laboratory original source? Where was it? Was it here that we took it over there? I mean, we don't know that, and that's right now. There's a lot of speculations.
there are a lot of mad scientists.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The United States has had many mad scientists in its day.
Mm-hmm.
We brought a whole slew of mad scientists from Nazi Germany into this country, and people that should have been prosecuted, persecuted, and put to death for the crimes that they committed during the Holocaust were allowed to live and to continue doing what they do
Right.
best,
Right. Operation
So-
Paperclip. Yes, exactly. And yes, Elliot, accordingly, and if we watch the movie Contagion, it started off from a bat. But I don't think we know enough about it yet to make such, strong claims. And, I get what you're saying, Darcy, that just calling it where it came from is not racist. But there are a lot of people that will take it as such, and they'll try to attack those that come from China because they feel that it's the Chinese people's fault that they've lost a loved one or that they lost their job, and it's like humanity is really warped.
I mean, when people are being discriminated against because of their ethnicity, with regards to this virus, I mean, wouldn't you think that that would be a reason not to use the terminology?
Right.
I mean, when the president's been told that there's people that have been harassed, that have been, really had their lives disrupted because of this whole ethnic thing that's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like, Darcy, when somebody says that a transgender person committed a crime, and all these trans people that are like going against the trans community themselves, it harms the rest of transgender people. I mean, I think you would agree with that. So, instead of just pointing out, well, this trans person is this, that, and the other, so that must mean in people's mind they think that all trans people commit crimes that way, or they're all fetishistic. And so we try to be sensitive to that particular what's the word, situation or whatever. And but I get what you're saying. That's and Supa says too many theories making my head spin. There's so many theories.
Yeah,
there are. And Elliot says,
I agree, Mark. I've seen people be really rude and racist towards Chinese people because of this, and it's really not okay.
It's not okay. It really isn't. And Dylan says, even if it ended up in China first, it came from something outside of China or something. I really don't think it's literally came from China, just a theory. Yeah. It's.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Imagine getting offended by saying it's the Chinese virus. There's nothing offensive about that. It came from America. If it came from America, it would be shortened and named the American virus. You can be black or white. And that's I guess that's your opinion.
Yeah.
I guess.
And you're entitled to that, I just think it doesn't need to be called that. It's like, we've had flus that have originated here, I guess, or whatever, and we don't call it the American flu. It's just viruses could, for all we know, bird dropping could have come from whatever and created some sort of virus, and it landed there.
I think the president knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And for him to, have the attitude that he's sporting during the press conferences when the eyes of the world are on him,
Yeah.
I think he has an agenda for why he says what he says.
That's why the reporters keep questioning him about it. Obviously, it's people think it's not cool to do.
Yeah,
most people.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think it's okay, we can disagree.
Yeah.
You know, and that's perfectly fine.
Agree to disagree.
I don't know. I mean, if something was called the Canadian cancer, I think that you'd probably be offended.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you wouldn't.
Yeah. Still love you though. We could agree to disagree. I mean, I guess because we are, we come from Latin countries and we're a little, sensitive to stuff like that, and we just wouldn't want to see people get hurt because of that, And I think that in the state of that we're in this world right now, that people don't have coping skills, and they might get upset at someone because they'll take it out on them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, people stopped going to Chinese restaurants because they felt that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obvious an ethnic tinge to not going to certain places because, I'm sure across the countries in the world that it's, people going to Benihana or, all these different restaurants, the Asian food places that they felt some kind of repercussion.
Yeah.
But
this time, this time of that we're heading here, we need to be more cohesive, and not see color and race and not be divisive, because it's not going to help anyone. We need to stick together, and try to be, a little more caring, loving, and I don't know. I just
think we should be compassionate.
Yeah.
And if it did originate or come from China, then the effectiveness of saying that and just saying it in a sense of well, you're the ones who did it. You're the ones who brought this scourge on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's your fault. I don't think that's going to help anything.
It's only make matters worse,
So if it came from
wherever it came from, it's devastating the entire planet, and we need to deal with it, and not point fingers. Wow, it's been 2 hours and I'm getting hungry. We need to have
we're gonna have our soy meat today, right?
Yeah. We had a good steak yesterday. So yeah, thank you guys for being in, and stay safe. Keep your frequency up, vibrations high. That's how. Get out in the sun, we got it was a little cold when we got out, and then all of a sudden, luckily it changed. I'm glad we got out, because cabin fever is not great, so it's good to be out there and take in the air and get some natural vitamin D. Let's see.
So Prophecy said, Marcy said,
like Lynna said,
Darcy said,
too many coincidences.
The state of America is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. And Dylan says, I agree. And Marcy says, like Lynna said, too many coincidences. Prophecy end of day said,
I think we should call it Canadian cancer.
We should just call it flu 2020. Yeah. And Suped said,
if you sneeze or cough while shopping, people stop with nasty looks and comments under breath, and literally has the feel of the lynch mob. I mean, people are calling 911, calling the police actually to report their neighbors in California because they're coughing.
Yeah. Well, today when we were playing basketball, we heard somebody coughing. I'm like, oh no, they're just stay home. Let's see here. Elliot said, thanks for streaming.
Florian says, I'm sensitive too. I come from a country with you all know the background, Germany, and nowadays there's more racists here than ever since 1945. People never learn.
I know. Yeah. And Elliot said, please take care, both of you. You too, Elliot. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing your time. Much love to you all, Zoopet says.
And Florian, Dilla says, Florian, I don't hold Germany against all that. It's in the past, and that was caused by people, not a country. Very true.
You know, in Germany, there are symbols of retribution for what happened in that country. There's like an apology that's been made to the world by them, by the German people, and that goes a long way to healing. You know, in this country, there hasn't been an apology to the Native American. You know,
no, not at all. And Marcia said, "Thanks for keeping us sane." Yeah, sane. Yeah. So, all right, guys, stay well, stay safe, keep that vibration high. We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too. Hit the like button, share, and support the channel if you can. Take care. Bye-bye.